Today, I'm on Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and I'm going to reveal some hidden historical gems that you never heard of.
Today, I'm standing on one of the most contested and sacred pieces of ground on earth, Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and I'm about to reveal some hidden historical gems that most people never get to see. I brought a small camera with me to keep things low-key and not attract too much attention. I also made it clear to my tour guide that we're focusing purely on history, not politics, though he smiled and reminded me that on Temple Mount, everything is inherently political. But today, we're diving deep into Jewish history and the incredible events that unfolded here during the Second Temple era. Before we even enter Temple Mount, I need to show you something extraordinary. Right behind me is an original Roman street with authentic ancient stones, the very path where Jesus once walked. You can actually see fallen stones from the siege of Jerusalem when the Second Temple was destroyed in 70 CE. This isn't just archaeology, this is living history beneath our feet. Look up at that corner over there. Every Friday during biblical times, a priest would stand at that exact spot to announce the beginning of Shabbat to the entire city. He chose that location because it provided the perfect vantage point over the city of David below. This gives you a sense of what Jerusalem looked like during the Second Temple period. See that bridge structure? Those are the remains of what connected the upper city to the Temple Mount. And right here, according to historians, is where Jesus flipped the tables of the money changers. This was essentially an ancient shopping center at the entrance to Temple Mount, filled with merchants and currency exchangers taking advantage of pilgrims. Here's something that will blow your mind about the Western Wall. The section where people pray today represents only a tiny fraction of the original structure. The complete Western Wall stretched 480 meters, extending from this corner all the way north to the Via Dolorosa. What tourists see today is just the tip of the iceberg. Now we're actually on Temple Mount, and despite its significance, it's remarkably empty today. These stones scattered around us are genuine Roman-era relics from the Second Temple period. Here's something incredible that most guides won't show you. There are actually traces of gold still embedded in some of these ancient stones. Look closely at these particular stones, and you can see remnants of gold from the Roman era still clinging to the surface after nearly 2,000 years. The cats of Jerusalem deserve a mention too. They're everywhere and have become part of the landscape. But let me introduce you to Takahir Samya, an expert guide who specializes in Temple Mount and Second Temple history. If you're planning a visit, I'll leave his contact information in the description. Here's something that will completely change how you see this place. We're standing on solid stone, but underneath this entire compound is another world. There's a massive underground mosque called Marwani and what's known as King Solomon's Stables. The entire southern section of this compound is built on a network of arches and columns that support the floor we're walking on. It's essentially a massive elevated platform with a hidden underground space beneath our feet. Looking at the Al-Aqsa Mosque behind me, you'll notice something interesting about its architecture. See that rosette design? That's actually Christian Crusader architecture. When the Crusaders conquered this area, they converted this building into a church, and you can still see those Christian architectural elements today. Al-Aqsa Mosque is the third holiest site in Islam, after Mecca and Medina. According to Islamic tradition, this is where Prophet Muhammad made his night journey on his mystical horse Al-Buraq to meet Allah and receive the commandment for Muslims to pray 5 times daily. From this vantage point, you can see the city of David to the south and the modern Silwan neighborhood. According to Muslim belief, everything on this compound is sacred, not just the major structures like Al-Aqsa Mosque or the Dome of the Rock, but every leaf, every stone. You cannot remove anything from this holy ground, not even a pebble or a leaf.
Now, here's something genuinely alarming that most people don't know. The entire southern section of Temple Mount sits on those arches and columns I mentioned. And historically, Jerusalem experiences a major earthquake approximately every 100 years. The Dome of the Rock, built on the solid bedrock of Mount Moriah, remains stable during these seismic events, but Al-Aqsa Mosque gets partially destroyed and rebuilt after every major earthquake. The structure you see today includes sections that are original and sections that have been rebuilt multiple times throughout history. According to my guide, we're actually due for another major earthquake in our lifetime. When you consider that this entire southern compound is supported by ancient columns and arches rather than solid ground, the implications are staggering. The original Mount Moriah was just a hill when Abraham brought Isaac here, but successive builders used these engineering marvels of columns and arches to create the massive platform that allows thousands of people to gather and pray. Behind me are King Solomon's stables, part of that underground compound from the Second Temple period. Here's where things get controversial and political. In 1997, the Islamic Waqf cleared out centuries of accumulated debris from these underground areas. They loaded truck after truck with this material and dumped it outside the Temple Mount compound. This caused enormous tension because they were essentially discarding what many considered holy ground mixed with priceless archaeological artifacts. This led to what's now called the Sifting Project. The discarded material was dumped near the Mount of Olives, and to this day, over 220,000 volunteers have participated in carefully sifting through this debris. They've discovered ancient coins and other historical treasures that originated from Temple Mount. Some view the original disposal as a deliberate attempt to erase Jewish historical connection to the site, while others see it as necessary maintenance work. You can see a group of Jewish visitors entering now, heavily guarded by police. Non-Muslims can only visit Temple Mount between 7 and 11 in the morning, and Jewish groups require police escort at all times. These are religious Jews who want to pay their respects to this sacred ground, though they face significant restrictions on their visits. Now we're approaching one of the most mysterious and significant sites here, the Golden Gate. You've probably seen photos of this sealed entrance from the Mount of Olives side, but here's the view from within Temple Mount. During the Ottoman period, the ruler deliberately sealed this gate with cement. The story goes that he did this because he believed it would prevent the entry of any Messiah, Jewish, Christian, or otherwise, since various traditions suggest the Messiah will enter Temple Mount through the Golden Gate. The mystery deepens when you realize this gate holds eschatological significance for all three Abrahamic religions. In Islamic tradition, during the end times, 7 arches will form a bridge from the Golden Gate to the Mount of Olives, and only righteous Muslims will be able to cross without falling. For Christians, this is believed to be where Jesus entered Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, though today's Palm Sunday processions use the Lion's Gate instead, since the Golden Gate is sealed and converted into a mosque. The Ottoman rulers placed a Muslim cemetery outside the gate, again believed to be an attempt to block its sacred function. Conversely, the Jewish cemetery on the Mount of Olives, one of the world's oldest active cemeteries, serves the opposite purpose. Some Jews choose burial there, believing they'll be first in line when the Messiah comes and resurrection begins. It's incredibly expensive to be buried on the Mount of Olives, but the religious significance drives demand. There are actually about 100 mosques throughout this Temple Mount compound. Every platform with a mihrab and Qibla direction toward Mecca technically qualifies as a mosque. This creates an incredible density of sacred space within a relatively small area. Here's something that will shock you. You see this seemingly ordinary carpet? Underneath it are pieces of cedar wood discovered during the sifting of that discarded Temple Mount debris. These cedar logs came from Syria and Lebanon, the only places in the Middle East where cedar grows naturally. We know from historical records that King Solomon imported cedar from these regions for the first temple construction. The pieces found in the debris have been scientifically confirmed as cedar and are believed to be actual remnants from Solomon's temple. Currently, there's an ongoing legal battle. The Israeli Antiquities Authority and other organizations are demanding these cedar pieces be transferred to proper museums for preservation and study. Until that's resolved, these potentially 3,000-year-old temple fragments remain hidden under this carpet next to the Golden Gate.
From this elevated position, you can see the incredible religious diversity of Jerusalem. The tour guide calls this a holy terminal, where people of all three faiths ascend and descend. You can see churches, mosques, like the one behind me, and synagogues in the Jewish quarter. There's actually an ongoing competition for the tallest dome in Jerusalem. Right now, a white-domed synagogue holds that distinction, surpassing even the famous Golden Dome of the Rock. We're standing at the exact location where the ancient altar once stood. This spot is now an open-air mosque used by women when men are praying in the main mosque areas. They face the Qibla direction toward Mecca from this very place where Jewish priests once offered sacrifices 3,000 years ago. The Dome of the Rock itself features 2 complete chapters from the Quran inscribed on its walls. Despite being at the center of so much conflict and tension, when you actually visit, it's remarkably peaceful and quiet most of the year. While this Golden Dome sits over what Jews consider the holiest site in Judaism, the location of the Holy of Holies, Jewish visitors are not permitted to enter. This area includes sophisticated ancient water systems. During biblical times, controlling water sources was crucial for surviving sieges. Somewhere beneath this northern section, there are natural water sources, which explains why this location was chosen for such significant religious structures. We've reached the northernmost section of Temple Mount, where the stones look different and the atmosphere changes. This area was part of the Antonia fortress, where Pontius Pilate judged Jesus according to Christian tradition. The crowds documented in the New Testament gathered here demanding crucifixion. From this spot, Jesus would have begun carrying the cross along the Via Dolorosa, which starts just outside these walls. Behind me stands Al-Mashhad, apparently the only school within the Temple Mount compound. It's empty now during summer break, but imagine students attending classes with the Dome of the Rock as their daily backdrop. The contrast is striking. Here we have this incredibly complex, politically charged location, yet when you actually visit, you often have the place almost to yourself. Tourism has dropped dramatically due to regional conflicts, which means visitors today can experience these sites without crowds or long lines. In some ways, this makes it the perfect time to visit and truly absorb the profound historical significance of every stone, every arch, and every sacred space. What strikes me most after spending hours here is how many layers of history exist in this single location. Roman stones still bearing traces of gold, Byzantine foundations, Crusader architectural elements, Islamic sacred spaces, and Jewish holy sites all occupying the same few acres. Every step reveals another era, another story, another mystery waiting to be uncovered. The earthquake prediction weighs on my mind as we conclude. Knowing that this magnificent compound sits partially on ancient columns and arches, vulnerable to the seismic activity that has shaped its history from millennia, adds urgency to experiencing and documenting these wonders. Each visit might reveal something new, or might be among the last opportunities to see certain structures before the next inevitable transformation. This is truly one of the world's most extraordinary places, where 3,000 years of human faith, conflict, architecture, and devotion converge in a space smaller than many city blocks. Every stone tells a story, every view reveals another layer of complexity, and every moment spent here connects you to the countless pilgrims, worshippers, conquerors, and seekers who have walked these same paths throughout history.